So if you're living in Finland, you probably know that the most common types of housing are either renting or owning, so you bought your own place. And these are pretty easy to understand. When you're renting, you're paying someone in order to live in their place. You don't have to worry about the renovations, mortgage, but you also won't get to enjoy the possible price appreciation. And of course, there's always a risk that the landlord will kick you out. And when you buy an apartment, instead of paying rent, you pay off the mortgage and increase your wealth, and without forgetting the price appreciation. Also, no one can really kick you out either because it's your place. However, you still carry the risk of price fluctuations and renovations, for example. How would it sound if you can combine the best of both worlds? Lifelong tenancy, no mortgages, no renovations, and get a small benefit of price appreciation. The truth is, it's actually possible. Introducing asumisoikeusasuminen, right of occupancy housing. Launched in Finland in 1991, right of occupancy combines the benefits of both rental and owner-occupied apartments. Asumisoikeusasunto in Finnish, or ASO in short. And the idea is that the resident first pays 15% of the acquisition price of the apartment. This is called the right of occupancy payment, asumisoikeusmaksu in Finnish. And the rest of the purchase value has been financed with state-subsidized Arava loans or interest subsidy loans. The residents gets the right of occupancy, asumisoikeus in Finnish, to that apartment by paying this, but the building owner still owns the apartment. The owners are non-profit organization. And note that the payment 15% share is from the acquisition price, not the market price. In other words, how much it cost to build that apartment in the first place. The Ministry of Environment reports that in Finland there are currently around 50,000 ASO homes with around 100,000 tenants. Around 45% of these ASO homes are in the capital area. So how does the system work? Let's look at the features more in detail. Residence charge. In addition to the ASO payment, the tenant pays a monthly fee called residence charge, käyttövastike in Finnish. And the owner uses this to cover the costs and the maintenance of the building. But here's the kicker. By law, the käyttövastike has to be lower than the market rental prices in that area. So it's possible to save a little bit of money instead of renting in that same area. Lifelong right to live. The most remarkable feature of this system is that the owner cannot terminate the contract. In other words, you can live there indefinitely as long as you just pay the monthly payments and you keep the apartment in good shape. Compared to regular renting, the landlord can terminate your contract. But if you want to get rid of the place, if you don't want to live there, then you can give up the right as well. No worries about the renovations. The owner of the building is responsible for all the renovations and repairs in the building. So you don't have to worry at all about the renovation costs. No resale risk. So as mentioned, if you want to give up your right, you don't have to worry about selling the place because the owner does that for you. A financially reasonable option. As mentioned, the right of occupancy payment is 15% of the home's acquisition price, which means that you don't really need to get a huge loan compared to the case where you would buy a home. And if you want, you can also get that mortgage for an ASO apartment. In addition, you do not have to pay the transfer tax, varainsiirtovero, when you buy an ASO apartment. The transfer tax is either 2% for housing shares and 4% for houses. Refund of right of occupancy payment. So if you want to leave the place, you will actually get the original ASO payment back and it will be adjusted by the construction cost index. So in other words, you will get the original payment back plus some extra on top of it. I will give you an example later. Not redeemable. You can never buy the ASO apartment for you. You can only live there with the ASO right. So if you ever like to buy the ASO apartment, it is not possible with the current law. Okay, so who can apply for these ASO apartments? There are 3 requirements for this. First of all, you need to have a Finnish personal identity code. If you're living in Finland, you will have this. You also need to pass the wealth limit requirement. I'm going to give you an example soon. And thirdly, you do not own a corresponding apartment in the application area and do not have sufficient funds to purchase such an apartment. So let's look at the wealth limit requirement more in detail. HASO is one of the organizations that provide ASO apartments in Helsinki area, and they have a good example, so I'm going to quote it. So generally speaking, the wealth limit is 50% of the market price of an apartment corresponding to the apartment applied for. So what does this mean? Because we are looking at the market price, matters like the age of the building, size and location play a big role. So let's look at the example from HASO. An applicant applied for a 2-room apartment of 53 square meters from HASO in September September 2019. The apartment is an apartment building and it's located in the postal code area of 00560 in Toukola, where the average price of the old 2-room apartments is 5,651 euros per square meter, according to Statistics Finland. So in this case, the market price would be 53 square meters times the square meter price, and that equals to around 300,000 euros. And the 50% wealth limit would be around 150,000 euros. So in other words, if you wanted to buy that place, your combined wealth cannot exceed this number. So what is considered wealth? According to Hasso again, the wealth specification concerns the wealth shown on the pre-completed tax form, such as properties, shares, and debts. Information on personal bank accounts such as advanced savings and subsidy scheme account, that is the ASP account, are not needed. The pre-completed tax return must be attached to the wealth specification form. So in other words, stock portfolios, other apartments you may own, counted into this, and also debt reduce that. So assets minus debts is your wealth. And most importantly, there are only wealth limits, no income limits. So it doesn't matter how low or how much you make, anyone can apply as long as you just meet the criteria I mentioned earlier. If you're interested in ASO apartments, how can you apply? Well, there's basically 5 steps you need to do. To get started, you need to apply for a queuing number from the housing office in the municipality you are looking for an apartment in. And the capital region has its own number for each place, but if you're looking for example, in Tampere, Turku, Oulu, they have their own queuing number in those cities. So you need to apply for each city where you're looking for an apartment. And there's an important update about this. I'm going to tell you about that soon. Step 2, when you get your queue number, you can actually start applying for ASO apartments online. For example, Hasso and Asuntosäätiö are these organizations that offer these apartments, so you can go to their website, make an application to the apartments you're interested, and that's it. You can also use traditional apartment websites such as etuovi.com to look for ASO apartments. And then eventually they will start giving offers, and the offers are given with the lowest queue numbers. So depending on your queue number and the area, the waiting times can vary. For example, Hasso says on their website, since some of the applicants have already applied for a number 20 years ago, it can take a long time to get a housing offer with a brand new number. Apartments near the center have been offered with numbers below 45,000, issued in the 1990s. So that's really pretty ridiculous. So you had to actually get the number in the 90s to get apartments from Hasso. But that's just an extreme case. So for example, on the other end, if you go a little bit further away from the center, you can get an offer in just a couple of weeks or even days. And here's the important update for the queuing number system. So starting from the 1st of September 2023, the system will be renewed so that you will get the number from ARA, the Housing Finance and Development Center of Finland, instead of the municipality. Problem with the current system is that the people keep hanging on to those old numbers and they will wait until they get a super awesome place in very desired area. So with the new system, the queue numbers are only valid for maximum 2 years and then they will go bust. And this prevents people kind of hanging on and just waiting for super awesome places. And Asuntosäätiö has a very good description of the last remaining 3 steps, so I'm going to quote them there. Step 3, you will receive an offer from us if the right of occupancy home have applied for is or is about to become available. If the number of the applicants is very large, we will offer the apartment to those with the lowest queue numbers. The right of occupancy will be granted to the applicant with the lowest queue number. Step 4, accept the preliminary offer and visit the apartment. If you want the apartment and have the lowest queue number, we will send you a letter of reservation and a statement on assets you have to complete. We will submit the statement to the municipality, which will check the queue number and ensure that you meet the criteria for the right of occupancy. And the step 5, sign the right of occupancy contract and make the right of occupancy payment when you receive the municipality's approval for your right of occupancy. The right of occupancy payment must be made as a single bulk payment. And eventually, if you get an ASO apartment, it's also exchange the ASO apartments with someone else. And many of these ASO organizations have this like an exchange marketplace where you can find and post your place and hopefully find someone who would like to trade places with you. I have a link in the description for more information about that. So, okay, who is this system for? Does it really make sense to get an ASO apartment? In my opinion, I can see 2 possible scenarios. So the first case is that if you're not really looking into buying and having like a huge mortgage or worrying about the renovations and stuff, then ASO apartment may be worth for you. And as I mentioned, if you ever want to give up the ASO place, you will get the original ASO payment back, adjusted with the construction cost index. Let me show you a quick example how it works. So Hasso has this calculator where you can quickly figure out how much you would get refund. I will link it in the description. So here you just type in the original price, let's say 20,000 euro, And then here you will put the date of the first payment day when you got the place. So let's say if it was 2018, 3rd of October and lasken. And if we scroll down, we can see the adjusted price would be 23,000 euros around. So you would get around 3,200 euros refund. And note that this profit will be tax-free only if you have lived in the place for at least 2 years continuously. And the case number 2 is that it could also work as a stepping stone before buying your own place. If you don't have enough money saved or it's not like a near short-term plan for you, you can move to an ASO apartment, pay the ASO payment and pay the little bit lower rental rate, like the käyttövastike payment, because it's lower than the market rental prices. And eventually when you get enough money saved, then you can buy and then you can give up the ASO place and you will get the original ASO payment back with the adjustment. In my opinion, if you already have the means to buy a place, let's say in 1 to 2 years, then it probably makes sense to go for a owner-occupied home. Did you know that most Finns actually love to buy a home because there are a number of benefits for that? Watch this video next to find out why you should also buy a home in Finland.